welcome back to RameyWorks 360. In today's video, we're building the M1126 Infantry Carrier Vehicle Stryker, or ICV. And this one is going to be just a little bit different, because eventually this truck is going into a much larger Yakima Training Center diorama, and there's a reason for that. This particular Stryker represents a pretty interesting point in my Army career, one that started with me getting demoted, and somehow ended with me becoming the Sergeant Major's driver. Yeah, there's a story there. But before we get into that, let's get this thing built. Before my Afghanistan deployment, most of my time in the Stryker world had actually been spent on the MCV, the Mortar Carrier Vehicle. I was an 11 Charlie, a Mortarman, so that was our truck. That was my home. The Infantry Carrier Vehicle, they're always around us, obviously, but I didn't really spend much time on them. They belonged to the infantry squads, while we had our mortar carriers, our guns, ammunition, and everything that came with being a mortar section. So at that time, I probably couldn't have imagined that right before deploying to Afghanistan, I was going to end up driving one of these. And not just for anyone. I was going to end up driving for the Battalion Sergeant Major. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't that driver normally a junior position? Yes it is, which makes this next part even better. Because shortly before all of this happened, I'd been freshly demoted. I'd been a corporal, and while we were training at the Yakima Training Center, there'd been a piece of broken equipment that somehow ended up inside my truck that I was responsible for. Leadership found out, and apparently my communication skills surrounding the situation were less than ideal. So anyway, freshly demoted. Probably not exactly feeling like my military career was heading in the right direction I had hoped, and then Sergeant Major Lewis chose me to be his driver. To this day, in my opinion, Sergeant Major Lewis was the best Sergeant Major I had ever served under, and looking back on it now, I wish I had remembered exactly why he had picked me. Maybe he saw something in me, maybe somebody recommended me. Maybe he just needed a driver and I happened to be standing in the wrong place at the right time. I honestly don't know. But there is something I appreciate about the decision a lot more today than I probably did then. The Army has a funny way of doing that. You can think you've completely screwed something up. You can take a step backward, you can get knocked down a rank, and then almost immediately somebody gives you another opportunity to prove who you actually are. That doesn't erase the mistake, but it gives you somewhere to go from it. And that opportunity put me inside one of these. As I'm putting this together here, that's really what I'm thinking about with this build, because I'm not trying to represent one of our Strykers after months in Afghanistan. That build will have a very different personality. This is the truck before all of that. Before the deployment, before Afghanistan, before the memories that would eventually make this vehicle very important to me. This is the Yakima version. Training configuration, pre-deployment, a truck that still belongs to part of the story where none of us really knew what the next chapter was going to look like. Around that time, the battalion recognized some of us for that deployment. If I remember correctly, we were being used to help form what I believe was the TAC, and it created this wild mix of people. Some guys were already part of that organization, and then pulled some of us mortar guys to fill positions. On paper, it might have looked like a random collection of soldiers, but somehow our truck ended up with one of the best groups of guys I could have ever asked to deploy with. See, when you deploy, the people around you matter more than almost anything. You're going to eat together, work together, sleep within feet of each other, be irritated with each other, laugh at things that would make absolutely no sense to anyone outside that truck. And when things got difficult, those were the people that were standing beside you. The funny thing is, I really don't remember us doing a huge amount of training together before we deployed. This Stryker still has another story ahead of it. Eventually, I'll build the terrain around it and turn this vehicle into a Yakima scene. And when I do, I want to dig deeper into that piece and what it felt like. The training environment, the terrain, the soldiers, and some of the little details you only notice if you've actually spent time there. Because that is where this story really begins. A mortar guy, freshly demoted, who somehow finds himself sitting in the driver's seat of the Sergeant Major of his ICV, with absolutely no idea that the group of guys inside that truck was about to become one of the best crews he would ever serve with. Life has a strange way of connecting things. At the time, getting demoted felt like a setback, and it was. I earned the consequences that came with the decision I made, but that setback also put me in a completely different position. And ultimately, it became part of a deployment that I'll remember for the rest of my life. That's something I think about now. Sometimes the moment you think knocked you off course just changes the road you're traveling on. You still have to decide what you're going to do with it, and apparently my road involved driving one of these. So here she is, the M1126 Infantry Carrier Vehicle, pre-deployment Yakima Training Center. And for now, I'm going to leave this one without a base, because this build isn't actually finished. As you can tell, we still need to paint it and then build the diorama. And hopefully, when it's finished, it won't just look like a Stryker sitting in the desert. It'll look like one small moment in the lives of a group of guys who were getting ready to head halfway around the world together. Building the model is only part of it. The real goal is building the story around it. If you enjoyed this build, like, subscribe, and if you haven't already, let me know down in the comments what you'd like to see me include when I finally build the Yakima Training Center diorama around this thing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.